Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's dive into today's tale. They say, trust is the cornerstone of any marriage, and for 8 years I believed in that. I trusted Lisa with everything. My life, my children, my entire world. And yet, here I am, picking up the shattered fragments of a life I thought I understood. Our journey didn't begin with loud arguments or overt betrayals. It all started with a single conversation that evolved into something beyond my worst imagination. One evening, as we were lying in bed, Lisa turned to me with an expression I've come to fear, part excitement, part determination. Clearing her throat, she spoke cautiously. "Tom," she began, her voice filled with doubt, "the neighbors, Mark and Jenna, invited us to a party this weekend." I barely looked up from my phone, distracted. "Oh, did they?" She hesitated as though considering her next words carefully. "Yes, but it's not your typical party." That caught my attention. I glanced at her, sensing something was off. "What kind of party?" Her next words hit me like a blow. "A swingers party!" I laughed, thinking it was a bad joke, but her face remained serious. "You can't be serious," I said, sitting up straight. "Why not?" she countered, looking at me defiantly. "We've been stuck in a rut, Tom. Don't you think it could be fun?" I stared at her, struggling to understand her suggestion. "Lisa, are you hearing yourself? You're talking about sleeping with other people." She crossed her arms, a hint of frustration in her eyes. "It's not like it means anything. It's just for fun. Mark and Jenna say it's brought them closer." "I don't care about Mark and Jenna," I shot back, my anger rising. "I'm not interested. End of discussion." But it wasn't over. Over the next few days, Lisa kept bringing it up. She'd corner me while I was unloading the dishwasher, scrolling through my phone, or watching TV. "Think about it, Tom," she'd urge. "Just one night. That's all I'm asking." My resistance seemed to make her more determined. By Thursday night, she discarded any pretense of compromise. "I'm going," she declared, as I was putting Emma to bed, her voice sharp and defiant. I followed her into the living room, closing the door behind me. "You're going?" I asked. "Yeah, why don't you come with me? It'll be fun," she said, almost daring me. "What about Emma and Ben?" I asked, struggling to control my voice. "We'll hire a babysitter. It's not a big deal," she replied, brushing past me. "It's a big deal to me," I snapped, my voice rising. "You really think this is okay? That this insanity is good for our relationship?" "Yes, I do," she shot back, facing me with an impatient look. "You're so uptight, Tom. It's just one night, and if you weren't so closed-minded, you'd come too. Maybe it'll help us." "Help us? How? By watching you with another man?" I said, my heart racing. She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic." I stared at her, every word hitting me like a hammer. Finally, I said what had been on my mind for days. "I'm not going, Lisa. If you go, we're done. I'll file for divorce." Her lips parted in surprise, but instead of backing down, she dug in her heels. "You'd throw away our marriage over one night? That's pathetic." "No," I said firmly. "You're throwing it away by even considering this." She scoffed, shaking her head as if I were being unreasonable. I didn't respond, letting the silence settle between us. Divorce. The word had been hanging in my mind since this all began, but now it was clear. It wasn't a question of if, but when. What was there to save? The woman in front of me wasn't the Lisa I married. She was someone I didn't even recognize. As I considered my next move, she broke the silence, her voice almost teasing. "Come on, Tom. It'll be fun. If you're so uptight about it, I can record it for you. That way, you'll see it wasn't a big deal." Her words struck me like a slap. "You'll what?" I stammered, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and anger. "I'll record it," she repeated with a casual shrug, as if she were talking about something trivial. "You can see for yourself. Maybe it'll even turn you on." I was too stunned to answer at first. What kind of person even says something like that? But then, amid the shock and fury, a thought began to form in my mind. A cold, calculating thought. If she was foolish enough to record herself cheating, it would be perfect evidence. It would not only confirm her betrayal, but there would be no room for denial. The courts would side with me. She'd lose everything. The house, the kids, it would all be mine. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. She didn't need to know what I was thinking. Not yet. Fine, whatever, I finally said, keeping my tone neutral. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. Her eyes narrowed, suspicious. Just like that? What happened to all the yelling and the threats of divorce? I shrugged, pretending to be indifferent. If it's such a big deal for you, do whatever you want. Go record it. If that's what makes you feel better, I won't stop you. She stared at me, her face unreadable. Then, after a moment, she nodded slowly. Fine. I'll go. Don't worry about me, Tom. I'll have fun without you. I didn't reply as she walked out of the room, but a strange sense of calm washed over me. That evening, as I lay in bed, her words echoed in my mind. Record the whole thing. I couldn't process it. Not only did she want to sleep with another man, but she also suggested recording it, as though it were a simple, harmless request. The audacity of it left me stunned. If Lisa was so eager to ruin our marriage for a single night of so-called fun, I would make sure she faced every consequence of her choice. The night of the party, Lisa was practically glowing as she got ready. She wore a black dress that hugged her body, paired with heels she hadn't worn in years. She barely acknowledged me as she grabbed her purse. "I'll be back late," she said, heading out the door. "Don't forget your camera," I muttered, unable to hold back the jab. She shot me an angry glance but didn't reply, and then she was gone. As soon as the door shut, I sprang into action. I called my mom, briefly explaining the situation, and asked if she could watch Emma and Ben for the weekend. Thankfully, she didn't ask many questions, and within the hour, I had packed the kids' bags and dropped them off at her place. Back home, I poured myself a strong drink and sat in silence, imagining what Lisa might be doing. Anger and betrayal churned inside me, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was just a temporary situation. Tomorrow, I'd have the evidence I needed, and then I could begin the process of removing her from my life. The next morning, Lisa walked into the house around 10 a.m., looking smug despite her disheveled appearance. Her hair was messy, her makeup was smudged, and her dress was wrinkled from a long night at the neighbor's house. But there was a satisfied, almost triumphant look in her eyes that made my stomach turn. She dropped her purse on the counter and leaned against it, grinning at me as if she hadn't just destroyed our marriage. "Well?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I looked at her, my expression flat. "Well," she repeated, smirking as she pulled her phone from her bag. "I recorded it, just like I promised," she said, holding it up like it was some sort of prize. "All the proof you need that it wasn't a big deal. Go ahead, take a look." Her tone, her attitude, and the casualness with which she said it made my blood boil. I didn't trust myself to speak. Without a word, I grabbed the phone from her hand and walked toward the stairs. As I turned to leave, she called out, glancing around the empty house. "Wait, where are the kids?" she asked. "They're with my mom," I replied, not bothering to stop or turn around. "I thought it would be better for them not to see you stumbling in like this." Her mouth opened, but she quickly recovered, rolling her eyes. "God, you're so dramatic. It's not like they'd even notice." I didn't answer. I climbed the stairs, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Once in our bedroom, I plugged her phone into my laptop and started transferring the files. My hands were trembling as I opened the folder, the weight of what I was about to see pressing down on me. Part of me still wanted to believe it was some elaborate, misguided joke. But as the videos loaded and I began watching them, that hope shattered. Each clip was worse than the last. The laughter, the intimacy, the utter disregard for me and the life we'd built. It was all there. By the time I finished, I felt hollow. The last shred of doubt had been obliterated. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a mockery of everything we'd shared. And yet, amidst the pain, there was clarity. This was it. This was the end. I copied the files onto a secure drive to make sure I had all the evidence I needed. Then, taking a steadying breath, I walked back downstairs. Lisa was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, acting as if nothing had happened. I held out her phone, and she took it with a smug smile, clearly misinterpreting my expression. "I hope it was worth it," I said, my voice low and cold. Her smile faltered, confusion flashing across her face. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You'll find out soon enough," I said, turning away. I didn't stick around to watch her reaction. Instead, I went to the kitchen, poured myself another drink, and sat at the table, staring at the wall. My mind was already turning. Tomorrow, I'd call a lawyer. Tomorrow, I'd start taking my life back. The following morning, I made the call. By the end of the week, I had met with the lawyer, gone over my options, and filed the divorce papers. The video Lisa had so smugly provided gave me the upper hand, ensuring I had the evidence needed to secure custody of the kids and a favorable financial settlement. But Lisa, as usual, didn't take it seriously at first. "You're being ridiculous, Tom," she said when I served her the papers. "This is a knee-jerk reaction. You can calm down." "No, Lisa," I said firmly. "This is me being done." The kids were already staying at my mom's, so I packed a few things and decided to join them. Away from Lisa, away from the mess, it felt like the only safe place for all of us, where we could just breathe for a while. But as the days passed, it became clear that Lisa wasn't ready to face the reality of what she'd done. Her confidence started to falter, and she began calling me at odd hours, begging me to reconsider. One evening, she showed up at my mom's house, desperate to see the kids. "Let me in, Tom," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I made a mistake. Please, I was trying to fix things, not break them." "You broke them the moment you walked out that door," I said, blocking her path. "Now leave." The divorce process was as brutal as I expected, but the videos were a game-changer. Lisa's lawyer tried to argue that the swinger party had been consensual and mutually agreed upon, but my lawyer quickly shut that down. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. I received full custody of Emma and Ben, and Lisa walked away with far less than she had hoped for. After the divorce, I moved into a small apartment, starting over. Lisa, on the other hand, stayed in the house we had shared. It wasn't the home she had once dreamed of. It was stripped of its warmth, and she had lost much of the life we had built there. Months later, I ran into Mark, the neighbor who had hosted the party. We crossed paths at a local store, and he seemed uncomfortable, avoiding my gaze. "Listen," he said finally, shifting his weight. "I didn't know Lisa would, go that far." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then sighed. "She didn't just sleep with one guy. She slept with 3. I stared at him, my stomach churning. "3?" I whispered, barely able to speak. He nodded. "I thought you should know." "I'm sorry, man." I walked away without saying another word, my mind racing. I thought I knew the extent of her betrayal, but this was something else entirely. Looking back, I'm grateful for one thing. I found out who Lisa really was, before wasting any more years on her. Rebuilding my life wasn't easy, but I did it. For me and for my kids. As for Lisa, the last I heard, she was still living in our old neighborhood, but her reputation was in tatters. It turns out that sleeping with half the party isn't the best way to make friends. Thanks for watching.